Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're here to talk about the VOE requirements. I am Holly Gurn, Professional Standards Manager. I'm going to ask my team to turn on their cameras and wave when I say their names so everybody can know who the CPHR Saskatchewan team is. So we'll start with Nicole Norton-Scott. She's our CEO and Registrar. Nicole, if you can
Good
wave.
morning. Hi. Sorry, I was on mute again.
Hi, Nicole. Leanne Polishin, our Marketing and Events Manager.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Leanne. Amanpreet Kaur, our Member Relations Coordinator.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Amanpreet. Mariam Ahmed, our Marketing Coordinator and our co-op student.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Holly.
Hi, Mariam. So thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll be recording this webinar and placing it on our VOE page so you can watch it in the future. So the VOE process is the final step in obtaining the CPHR designation. Over the next 30 to 45 minutes, I'm going to go over the VOE requirements at a high level and then get into some detail when completing the VOE application form. Questions can be placed in the chat and Leanne will monitor them and we can discuss them at the end. So this is what our agenda looks like. It looks like a number of different topics, but we'll touch briefly on them. And again, you can go into more detail and know where to find the information in the documents that I'm going to share with you. So we're going to talk about transcripts, time frame for experience, HR work, HR experience, the different competencies, STAR method, show you the website, the handbook, the application, the revised competency framework, talk about submission deadlines, the fees and the certificates, results, the application package as a whole, the process, and then we'll get to the question and answer. So before you even get started working on your application, you're going to want to make sure your transcripts are on file with us. So some of you will have your transcripts on file if you had applied for an NKE waiver, or if you were going to write the NKE in the last year and a half or so, you needed to be considered NKE ready and have your transcripts on file. If you don't, you're going to want to request them now. If your education was from within Canada, you'll request them directly from your institution. Some of the institutions are using MyCreds, which is an online system, and then we end up with an email coming to us with the document, and we let you know once we've received your transcripts. You cannot send us your transcripts directly. They have to come from the institution. If your education is from outside Canada, you will have to have it assessed by either WES or IQuest, with the evaluation reports being sent directly from either one of those organizations to us. The VOE application will not be processed until we have the transcripts on file or the evaluation reports. So time frame for experience. So once you become a candidate, you have 10 years from the date you found out you're a candidate or from the time that you've been approved for the NKE waiver. So as an example, say you passed the NKE June 18th, 2022. You have until June 18th, 2032 to successfully pass the VOE. It may take more than one attempt to be successful, so don't wait until your 9th year to submit your application. Your HR experience can go back 10 years from the VOE submission deadline. So as an example, our next intake date is April 30th. Your HR experience can go back to April 30th, 2013. HR work. So 51% or more of the time must be doing HR work to be considered. If it's any less than 51%, there's no need to put it on your application as it won't be considered. And again, all this information can be found in the handbook. I'll just touch on it here and then show you where the information can be found later. So there are two types of HR experience that we look at. There's advisory and administrative. So advisory HR experience is where you exercise independent judgment to establish a diagnosis in HR, make recommendations and influence decisions, do program development, implementation of policies or practices in HR. Work is done autonomously. And in the handbook, it goes into more detail around independence of actions, your depth of work requirements, level of interaction, and responsibility of work outcome. Administrative HR experience is more prescribed and transactional. HR tasks are routine in nature, lower in complexity. The direction is clearly defined, and there's low autonomy. Again, in the handbook, there is a chart with different job responsibilities and if it falls under advisory or administrative. So I will point that out to you, and it's just a suggestion. You may want to go through and see where your experience may fall. Now, the list is not an all-inclusive list. If you have your degree or master's, you require 3 years of work experience with 51% or more being HR work. Within that 3 years, you require a minimum of 2 years at the advisory HR level and a maximum of 1 year at the administrative level. You could have all of your experience at the advisory level and none at the administrative level. If you have a diploma, you require 8 years of work experience with 51% or more being HR work. There's a minimum of 5 years required at the advisory level and a maximum of 3 years at the administrative level. Again, you may have all 8 years at the advisory level and none at the administrative level. So the VOE application is aligned to the revised competency framework. And there are HR competencies and general competencies. And I will show you where the link can be found on the website so you can get some more information on that. So the HR competencies define work that an HR professional does. They are categorized into 9 HR competency areas, which in turn comprise of 49 HR specific competencies. And again, in the revised framework, in the appendix, you'll be able to see more detailed information on the competencies. Applicants must successfully demonstrate a minimum of 8 examples where HR work is at the advisory HR level and aligned to the HR competencies. Examples provided must follow the STAR method. The general competencies include capabilities that an HR professional should possess to operate successfully in their professional practice and are not specific to the HR profession. They are categorized into 12 general competency areas, which in turn comprise of 48 general competencies. Examples are not required for the general competencies. So there's no need to worry about that on the application form. When you are selecting the competencies, you need to provide examples for your advisory HR experience using the STAR method on the application form, which I'll show you in a bit. So the STAR method stands for S, situation, T, task, A, action, R, result. Speak to what you did when providing your examples, your role, your actions, and how it aligns to the competencies. As HR professionals, we often work as a team and we say, we did this and our responsibilities were this. We need to specifically know what you did. You must write out the STAR when providing your example. So now I'm just going to jump over to a different screen. So just bear with me. Okay, so everybody should be able to see our website. It's cphrsk.ca. To get the full benefits of the website, make sure that you're signed in. I'm just going to briefly show you manage profile. If you're ever looking to edit your bio, look for invoices, check out your membership and what events you're registered for, this is where you'll find that information. So in regards to the VOE information, you want to go to CPHR, become a CPHR, down to validation of experience. So we've talked about this beginning part, so I'm just going to scroll through the HR competencies, which you're going to focus on, general competencies for your information. And then we get to the VOE application and handbook. We strongly recommend that you read the handbook before you go any further. So I'm going to pop over to the handbook, and I've already opened that. Oh, sorry. And I'm just going to scroll through. There's a table of contents. You can click on what you're looking for and it'll take you right there. Some general information for you. We've talked about the education that's required and the years of experience in HR. In point 4, you're going to want to review this. So defining advisory HR and administrative HR experience, so you have a better understanding. Take a look at the practice of human resources and what it includes. And this is where I mentioned earlier about the independence of actions, depth of work requirements, responsibility for work outcome at the advisory HR level. And this is the chart that you're going to want to look at. So it's got the specialized area, different job responsibilities as to whether it's administrative or advisory. So you may want to go through and just circle some of your responsibilities and just see where your HR experience lands to give you an idea as to whether or not you're more administrative or at the advisory level. Again, this list is not an all-inclusive list. 4.2 explains what is not advisory HR experience. Talks about the time working in HR. So again, 51% or more of an applicant's time needs to be working in HR or doing HR work. Education. We've got full-time versus part-time work. So if you work less than 30 hours, we will prorate your experience. So for more information, you can take a look at the example. You can take a look at non-HR specific roles. If you're not working directly in HR. The HR competencies, again. The general competencies. Sorry, I may be scrolling a little bit too fast for you. The STAR method. Again, remember to structure your example, STAR. There's an example you can refer to using the STAR method. Then it gets into submitting your validation of experience application, and we'll get to that a little further on. The other document you're going to want to take a look at is the competency framework. I'm just going to make it bigger here. Oops, sorry. I'm not sure why it's going further over. Let me just. Sorry, it's a little lopsided for you there. Let me try something else so that it opens a bit better. I was trying to save time by opening it in advance. That didn't seem to work as well. Okay. That's still going to do the 2 pages for me. Of course, everything worked when I tried it before we started, so I'll just continue on. You're going to want to go to Appendix 1. And in Appendix 1, it's going to give you more details on the various HR specific competencies. So when you're going through your application, you're going to want to come back, and once you've decided what competencies you may want to provide examples to, you may want further information from the revised competency framework to see if your examples meet the definition of the competency. So it'll take you all the way down to the 49 specific HR competencies to 1.9.6. And if you want for general information, you can go read about the general competencies. And then you'll find the handbook here. I've already opened that. So the beginning is going to refer you back to the VOE handbook. Talk about the transcripts, how you, where you send your information, paying the validation of application fee. And then once you've gone through the full application, you're going to come back and check off all the ticky boxes. The form is restricted and therefore doesn't allow for for spell check in the text boxes. So as a suggestion, put your examples in a Word document so you can spell check it, and then copy and paste them back over to the form. In part A, you're going to fill out your information, your current member of CPHR Saskatchewan, and if you're applying for the 3-year or 8-year VOE. We have a senior pathway, but for this information session, it's the 3-year or 8-year that's applicable. If you have submitted your VOE before and weren't successful, you would just say, I have applied for the VOE previously, and then the date. And it talks about the different criteria to pass. It is a long application, but again, it lists all 49 competencies in here. In Part B, advisory level employment history, this is where you're going to list the positions which you think are at the advisory level. You may not be including all of your positions on your resume, just the ones that you want to be considered for the VOE application. So if you're using your current position, you'll put it in here, job title, employer, your start date. You're still working there, so you won't fill out the end date. If you took a leave of absence for a month or more, you're going to say yes and put the dates in there. What percentage of your work is HR? How many hours per week do you work? Number of employees you supported, and then a summary of your work. Don't copy your job description, just provide us a summary in your own words. And you may have other positions you want to include. So we've got room for 3 other positions, or 2 other positions, other than the one I just showed you. Of course, my internet seems to be slowing down. If you need to include more than 3 positions in the advisory section, please contact us and we'll give you another document so you can add additional positions. Part C is for positions at the administrative level. So you may not be using this section, and that's fine. If you are, we've got room for several different positions. Do not combine positions with the same employer. So if you were an HR assistant and then a coordinator, you wouldn't put it all as one. You would have separate. Depending, you may feel that your HR coordinator is at the advisory level as well. So I would go in the other section. Wow, sorry, this is scrolling through really slow. Part D is the HR competencies. So again, use the STAR method, provide a minimum of 8 specific examples where HR work is at the advisory level. So if you listed any positions under the administrative section, you don't need to provide examples for that. If you've listed 3 positions under advisory, you have to provide a minimum of 1 example for each position listed so that you get credit. If there's a position there that doesn't have an example attached to it, then it won't be considered. And it goes over the STAR method. And then we have all 49 competencies. So review them and see which competencies you have examples for. And it's always recommended to give us more than the 8. So 2 to 3 more would be great, because if you give us the minimum and you don't receive credit for one of them, then you're going to be short and we're going to be coming back to you. So I'm going to choose the first one. I'm going to put that I'm the HR consultant for ABC Co. And then I'm typing S for situation and would be describing it. T for task, describing A for action, describe. R for result, and describe. So you're actually going to be writing out the STAR for each example that you provide. If it's not in your application when you submit it, we will be sending it back to you. So again, all the HR specific competencies are listed. You're going to come to the member declaration. We will need an actual signature from you. You can't just type in your name and then you enter the date. Again, another signature and the date. We will need your employer to verify the information that you provided for that specific position. So if you're using your current position, you're going to ask your current employer to review the information, and you'll enter the information up here, and then you'll have your supervisor sign off on it and date it and provide the information for their position contact information. If you're not using your current employer, then you'll go to the employer verification for the previous employer. Exact same information. And that's the end of the application there. Just going to switch back to the other screen. So even if you're not ready to submit your VOE package, start preparing for it. Review all the information, make notes of your examples. You may be working on something now that you think applies to a certain competency. Create a working document and enter the information so that you can reference it later. It's a lot of information. Save your brain from remembering in the future. This is not an application that can be quickly prepared. You need to spend time and energy on it. Check your spelling. Again, the form is locked down, so put your examples in Word and then copy and paste them over. We have 3 submission deadlines: April 30th, August 30th, and November 30th. So it's recommended to have your application in a few weeks beforehand to make sure that all the information is there. And if not, it gives you some time to gather what's needed and submit it. So I'd mentioned the VOE application fee before. It's $150. It must be paid by the submission deadline. And this fee is only paid once. So if you need to submit your VOE a second time, you would not pay this VOE application fee again. Once you pass the VOE, there's a $400 VOE completion fee. And now you're a CPHR. You'll receive a frame designation certificate, and the certificates are ordered twice per year. So you cannot use the designation behind your name, though, until all fees are paid. Results. We will have the results emailed to you within 8 weeks of the submission deadline. So the application as a whole, or the package, I guess. So once you've paid the $150 application fee and you're ready to submit your documents, again, don't wait until the deadline in case there's information missing. I do a high-level review. So I go through and make sure that there's a minimum of 8 examples. The signatures are all there. The resume is there. The job descriptions that are listed in the application are there. Again, if you're not listing the positions in the application, you don't need to include the job descriptions. You'll email the documents, PDF format, the VOE application form, the resume, the job descriptions. We already talked about the deadlines. If for some reason you don't get it in a few weeks beforehand and you're missing a few small things, I will give you a little bit of time to get that to me. But if there's a lot of information that's missing, you'll have to wait until the next deadline. So the VOE process. So I review the application like I had mentioned. Once it's good to go, 2 assessors receive the application and provide recommendation to the registrar. And once that is done, applicants are notified of the outcome by email.
Holly,
Yeah.
jump in there. Just I don't know why this word stuck out to me, and people might wonder who
Are assessors. So the assessors are members of the Validation of Experience Committee. We have a committee of assessors. So those are the people, they're members of the association, CPHR members.
Right, thank you. So if you weren't successful this go round, you can resubmit when you're ready. Again, you won't have to pay the application fee. You may want to appeal the decision, and you can appeal it within 30 days of receiving the results. Now, the fact that the decision was not the one that was hoped for is not grounds for appeal. So the appeals committee decides if the registrar erred in process or in fairness when making the final decision. And again, there's more information in the handbook. And that comes to the end of the information session. I didn't have any questions emailed in to me. Leanne, are there any questions in the chat?
There are.
Okay.
I'll start at the top.
Okay.
I'm curious, what were some of the changes from the previous VOE? I assume that means VOE application.
Right. Okay. Well, the competency framework changed. So it was looked at across Canada, looked at best practices and what was going on. So the application form had to change to reflect the new competencies. So that was the big change. In the latest round, there's only 8 examples, or a minimum of 8 that are required, whereas the last time there was more than 8. You had to provide examples in the knowledge areas and in enabling competencies. Okay, next question.
Next question. If we have a master's level degree, do you require transcripts from both our UGrad degree and our graduate degree, or just our graduate?
Just the graduate degree.
When describing a situation with sufficient detail to give understanding of the business problem, do you have any thoughts or guidance on maintaining confidentiality in this process? Some of my favorite, most interesting examples have been in response to somewhat sensitive organizational contexts.
You don't need to give specific names. You can mention positions. Everything is confidential. Our assessors assign a confidentiality agreement, so there's nothing to worry about that information is going to be shared out there.
Next question. Is a job transition considered a leave of absence, or will it be sufficient that the accurate start and dates are reflected?
So not exactly sure what you mean by job transition. Moving from a permanent job into a temporary job, you would list both jobs separately. If the position has been re-evaluated and changed, you may need to list both positions separately.
I think she meant changing from one employer to another. Naomi, if I read that right?
Can you
Yes,
read?
thank you. That's correct. Yes, changing actual roles from employer to employer. So if you had, say, a 1, 2, 3 month period between employers.
Oh, okay. No, then you wouldn't put a leave of absence for that. The leave of absence is more for that specific position.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next question. What are the options if we no longer are in contact with past employers and or do not have any contact information from previous supervisors?
You may need to see if you can get information from a past employer. Often candidates will need to go back if they don't have job descriptions from previous employers and ask for that. If not, you can write up what your job responsibilities were and ask the previous employer to sign off and date it on their letterhead and submit it to us that way. We need something to verify what your responsibilities were. And in terms of current supervisors, you may need to see who the best person is then at that previous organization that could verify what you did. Next question.
When you refer to job descriptions, are you expecting a formal JD, or maybe it's ID written by the organization, or simply our own description of the role we had?
It was JD, Leanne, job description. Preferably the formal job description, as that's the easiest if the organization actually has them. Otherwise, you will need to write one up and have the employer sign, date, and put it on letterhead, verifying that that was your position and your responsibilities.
Next question. If someone does not pass the VOE and their 10-year candidacy expires, what's the process or what happens from there?
That's a great question. We haven't gone through that yet, where that's happened. Normally when you hit the 10-year mark, your candidacy would expire. And you would go back to associate member and have to start the process again. Next question.
And I think there,
If I can just jump in, you know, we've had members that have hit the 10 years that have been successful. If Janelle, you're close to 10 years, I don't know where you're at. Reach out to Holly. We notify members that are in their final year just as a reminder, but you can check that out on your profile on CPHR Saskatchewan. What's important is to get the validation of experience application in prior to the 10-year expiration. So if it's expired and we haven't heard anything from you, we're not going to probably accept it after the fact because we've been communicating with the members. So if you feel like you're coming up, please, call. If you have questions after this, call Holly. But the most important thing is going to be for the association to receive your application before you expire.
Yeah, no, my application doesn't expire until next year, but I am going on a maternity leave very shortly. So it's one of those things where it's like, I'm sure that'll come up quick. So I wasn't sure what happens after that. So then you would be writing like the NKE and everything over again.
You would be. So given you're going on a leave though, again, contact Holly and she can chat with you about your personal situation.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That is it for questions, but please feel free to ask more if there's anyone else that still has some.
There's more questions that popped up than I was expecting. Okay, well, sounds like there's no more questions. So if something wasn't clear or you have further questions that you want to ask me specifically, feel free to email me and we can correspond that way, or we can arrange a phone call and discuss from there. I appreciate your time and it was nice of you to join us. And again, this recording will be put on the web page in the next week or so. So best of luck completing your application and submitting it. Thank you.
Polly, sorry, Polly,
Yep.
one
Second here, Stacy, if you want to stay on, or I guess if somebody else wants to hear this, there is just a couple comments about thank you. It was very informative. Thank you. Wonderful session. And then Stacy's just wondering about a former manager that's no longer with the previous organization. So in those situations where, you know, they can't get in touch with those people or they left, but you know, no one's around kind of thing. I think, Stacy, is what you're saying. Like, who do you get to sign something off?
Yeah, that's exactly. Like, I'm still in contact with, like, for one of my organizations, I'm in contact with one of the previous managers, but she is no longer at that organization anymore either. But would she be able to still sign off on the experience?
Yes, you can get her to sign off and just indicate that she was
Okay.
a former supervisor and that she's no longer with the organization.
Thank you, Nicole and Holly.
Okay, nothing else there?
all good.
I can't see the chat, so. Okay, again, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.